Hi guys, DevilHunterXYZ, and this time around it's another movie review. And I know it's been quite a while for that one, but this time I managed to see Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and comparing it to the first movie, I'd say it did step up above from what it had in content-wise in the original movie, and probably for the better actually. Well, let's jump into it. Okay, so for summary wise, the movie opens up with Dr. Robotnik, who is still stuck on this mushroom planet several months after the events of the first movie. And with that, he tries to eventually communicate or sends out like a blast of energy to try to get someone's attention out in space, to try to help him escape out of the planet. Eventually, it does work. A portal opens up, one of those ring portals. It opens up, and he manages to pretty much escape with the help of Knuckles the Echidna. And with that, they kind of formed a temporary alliance because they were both after Sonic the Hedgehog. Meanwhile, it jumps to Sonic kind of enjoying his life as trying to be a pseudo superhero, although not really a good one at that. But he's trying to find his own purpose in life. But at the same time, Tom has kind of been lecturing Sonic that he's still a kid and he still needs time growing up. I mean, because he's still, granted, he still is a kid. uh, so then afterwards, Tom and Maddie then we're heading out to Florida for Rachel's wedding, and at the time, Sonic was pretty much by himself, kind of enjoying life per se, enjoying life. But then, unfortunately, he gets interrupted by the return of Robotnik and Knuckles, and it could kind of go on all out bout, and then eventually we see uh, Tails actually make an appearance and help Sonic out of the situation, and from that point they escaped out to try to find out what in the world has been going on. All right, so pretty much what Tails tells Sonic is that he idolizes Sonic to the point where he kind of wants to help him out to accomplish his mission, and really the mission at that point is to protect him. Well, is to warn him about Knuckles. That Knuckles is trying to look for the Master Emerald that can give an individual immense power to take down armies, essentially, and that's kind of what Knuckles is trying to go after. But of course, Dr. Robotnik is teaming up with Knuckles for the time being. But it's kind of clearly obvious that Robotnik wants that power as well. But anyway, uh, they find out that Tails and Sonic, they find out that they need to find a compass to find the location where that Master Emerald is. So they head out to Siberia. And eventually, when they get to Siberia, they do find a temple with Sonic's old master, Longclaw. And there they managed to find the compass. And as they were trying to escape out of the temple and the mountains, they kind of has a big action scene where they were snowboarding down the mountains, and eventually got to the point where Sonic had to call Tom to open up a portal out in Florida so that they can escape out of the falling avalanche that was heading back behind them, which lead them into the wedding, the wedding scene with Rachel and her fiance. Uh, but then it turns out that the wedding was just nothing more than a huge ploy. That everyone was pretty much an undercover agent, pretty much known as Gun, the Guardian Units of Nations. Yeah, so Gun in general for those who play the games. And with that, they pretty much captured Sonic. They captured Tails. At that point, Robotnik and Knuckles, they managed to get their hands on the compass, and they were using it to find the location for the emerald. And of course, it gets into a little scuffle back at Florida, at the site, as Rachel and Maddie were trying to break out Sonic and Tails. And eventually that does happen, and it got to a point where Sonic and Tails had to try to go after both Robotnik and Knuckles. And at that point, those two managed to find a location in like an underwater temple where the Master Emerald is. And it gets to the point where Sonic he kind of blames himself for getting Tails hurt, and he believes he can do this on his own. He doesn't want to put anyone else in danger, so he tries on his own to go after them. And to some degree, it did work. And Sonic does meet them at the underwater temple, but unfortunately, they get Sonic and Knuckles get into another bout, and eventually, it kind of gets into like a stalemate. But at the same time, Dr. Robotnik, while they were busy fighting, he decides to steal the Master Emerald for himself. And at that point, he just pretty much left Knuckles to die. But Sonic, feeling sorry for Knuckles because of their similar backstories and similar situations, he saves Knuckles, and and then of course Tails comes in, and they kind of all somewhat reunite, try to stop Robotnik. Alright, so afterwards, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, they decided to team up together to try to take down Robotnik, and of course at the time, after Robotnik absorbed the Master Emerald and having all this immense power, Robotnik creates like a giant robot himself, and back at Green Hills tries to terrorize everything. And yeah, eventually the three manage to take down the giant robot to some extent. Well, they try to take down Robotnik by removing the Master Emerald from within Robotnik, which they did. And with that, Sonic uses the power of the the Master Emerald breaks into mini emeralds, and with that, he was able to absorb the emeralds to himself, so that he can become Super Sonic. And with Sonic's newfound power, he was able to easily take down Robotnik. And afterwards, though, after seeing the immense power that the emeralds can hold, Knuckles realizes he doesn't really want that power anymore, seeing how dangerous it really could be. But they decided to, but both Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails, they decided to form an alliance to try to protect the Emerald from any oncoming threats. And pretty much after that point, they were just living their normal Earth lives with the Wachowskis, and trying to, enjoy life as is. However, though, mid credit scene, it does talk about that Robotnik somehow managed to escape, possibly, as they didn't find his body anywhere among the wreckage amongst the robots, so it's possible that he escaped. But also, they found out that there is a file for hidden coordinates for another secret facility, and with it, there's another being, and it's clearly obvious it's Shadow the Hedgehog. So clearly, it's more or less sequel bait for the next movie. Just saying. Well, for the good of the movie, one thing I can say is the character development, especially with Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails. Yeah, I mean they have their strengths and weaknesses, and personality-wise, Sonic is always kind of the arrogant show-off that always likes to crack jokes. You got Tails, who's kind of like young the young apprentice who obviously idolizes Sonic, and at the same time he's kind of also like the brains of the operation with all these fancy gadgets. And then you have Knuckles, who's kind of the slow, dim-witted side, but he has like the raw power to make up for it. And even so with Robotnik, he kind of learns from his lessons, and he tries to. He kind of has the overall smart attitude that he thinks he's above everyone else in the world. And so, I mean, I love how they kind of play off of all those personalities. The second, I would probably say, would have to probably be the action scenes. Comparing it to the first, I'd say it's a step above, in my opinion. Especially with especially with the fights between Sonic and Knuckles. I mean, it's kind of like an all-out brawl. And at the same time, you get the stuff like the out in Siberia with the snowboarding stuff, and even like kind of the non-fighting stuff. Like there was a scene where Sonic and Tails had to do like a dance off just to get out of a situation, which was kind of insane to say the least. But I mean, it was pretty entertaining. I mean, everything all the way up until like the final fight against Robotnik and this giant machine. It was just kind of over the top action. And then the third, I would probably say mostly the lifelong lessons kind of it. Because I think even the first movie had something like that as well. But here, Sonic tries to he's trying to become mature, but he knows he's just a kid and he still has growing up to do, and he has a responsibility for other people. So I love how they kind of build off of life lessons on top of that. Well, for the bad of the movie, I can really only think of two things. I think for one, kind of that little side plot with Rachel's wedding kind of didn't really have much influence into the grand scheme of things. I mean, granted, it did give Tom the idea that Sonic needed to hang out with his own group for that part, but I think really just the fact that the whole thing was just nothing more than a ploy for Gunn. It just kind of seemed like out of nowhere, honestly. It just kind of seemed a little out of nowhere. I don't know. It didn't really contribute that much into the plot per se. And I mean, because Sonic and Tails were easily able to break out, they were able to escape pretty easily. So it just kind of seemed like an unnecessary side plot. And I guess also along the lines, I think really the actual plot itself was kind of another down point because it's kind of a cliche thing. I mean, Robotnik was evil. Robotnik is evil, and then he was going to turn on Knuckles since the very beginning after hearing about the Master Emerald. So it was pretty evident, that they were just temporarily working together to take down Sonic, and then he was just gonna betray Knuckles for the power, because again, Robotnik wants to be like the ultimate being out in the universe, essentially. So I mean, it was a pretty cliche plot, but nonetheless, though, it was still kind of entertaining in its own right. Well, overall, I say this movie is it's pretty good. I know for it kind of meets my standards for a good sequel, especially to like a video game movie, which like I said in the past, you don't really see too many great movies based off of video games. Most of the time they always flop, but I mean this is kind of one of the rare exceptions to it, and I kind of think it met my expectations. It has a pretty good enjoyment out of it. Like it, a lot of action scenes, a lot of lifelong lessons, and I mean, honestly, I'd say it's a step above from what the first movie had. So, I mean, why not? And of course, with the slight tease at the end for a third movie, I wouldn't be surprised if there was. I wouldn't be surprised for a third movie and seeing it pretty much anytime soon, whenever that's going to happen. But in terms of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, though, I honestly say it's a pretty good movie, and I would highly recommend it, especially if we saw the first movie. And with that, I would probably give it a final score of I would actually give it a final score of an 8 out of 10. It again, a step up above of all the character developments, all the action, and it was a pretty good enjoyment right there, pretty good entertainment for a movie. Well, guys, this is DevilHunterXYZ, and until next time.